The Tangaras are some of Sydney's most iconic and well-performing trains and have been around for over 35 years and to this day still run on majority of Sydney train lines. In this video today, we take a look back at the history of Sydney's Tangara trains and how they were so successful. Just before this video starts, I'd like to give a shout out to Phil from Sydney Trains Vlogs. His channel is in the top right of the screen and I'd like to thank him for providing me with majority of the footage of the Tangaras for this video. I will mention him now as I will not have time to put the text at the bottom of each video crediting him, so just be aware that majority of this video is filmed by Phil from Sydney Trains Vlogs. Make sure you check his channel out. It's 1988 and it's the beginning of a new dawn on the City Rail network. These new trains, known as the Tangaras, began entering service on the Sydney Rail network. They were known to revolutionise travel along Sydney and were very futuristic for its time. The Tangaras are such an iconic train that even to me, I named this channel after the Sydney Tangara trains. Known as TsetsTransport, it was named after the T-sets and also my love for transport. The Tangaras were known to primarily replace the U-set trains, or what many people used to refer to as U-boats. As seen on the screen here, these were trains that used to run in the interurban or intercity sort of area of the Sydney Trains network. These have now since been retired, and according to various heritage websites, one is still currently being restored, and hopefully one day we will see the U-sets running again for heritage tours. The Tangaras were believed to be one of the final trains to be made to replace all of the Red Rattler and old Silver set trains. This of course does not include the K, C and S sets, as around this time they were brand new. Most people will know that there's actually two types of Tangara trains, the T sets, which we've already mentioned, but also the G sets. They have since now been converted to T sets but used to run on the intercity network. The G-sets were quite an interesting train as they are actually fitted out with toilets similar to majority of other intercity trains. Since now they have been removed and there are still in some old ex-G sets some signs of where the toilets used to be.
Good evening, Andrew Lofthouse with ABC News. New South Wales is counting the dead and injured tonight after a train derailment on Sydney's outskirts this morning.
The 6:24 Tangara service left Central Station on time, headed south bound for Port Kembla. 1 hour and 7 minutes later, the four-carriage train lay stricken and derailed on Sydney's southern outskirts.
The front of the train has collided with that wall in a heavy impact, and then the remaining carriages have been dragged alongside the actual sandstone wall.
On the 3rd of January 2003, the unthinkable happened. A Tangara G-set on its way down to Port Kembla after leaving Waterfall Station was travelling at over 100 km an hour on a curve, even though it should have been going way below that. The driver had a heart attack and was not responsive. The train derailed and killed 9 people. These photos were taken a few days after the incident. This was known as one of the Tangara's deadliest train accidents, killing what used to be originally known as 9 people, then later found out to be 7. The Tangara has unfortunately suffered from many derailments, with the most recent one being at Kembla Grange Racecourse a few years ago. I was actually lucky to be able to film that derailment and see the aftermath of what happened. Thankfully, in that derailment, no one was critically injured and there were only about 4 or 5 people on board the train. We'll now be moving on to all the upgrades made to the Tangara trains over the years. This consists of 3 major upgrades to the trains and now an upcoming upgrade which we'll talk about a little later. The first upgrade, or more sort of trial test, was in the 90s when Tangara set G7, yes, the same one that derailed at Waterfall, was fitted with a new AC power system, as majority of the Tangaras were originally fitted with the DC power system. This was proven fairly successful and would then pass on into the present day. However, in 2005 was when G7 was eventually scrapped after the Waterfall train disaster. The second upgrade was a bit more major than that and commenced in the early 2000s. This was replacing a lot of the seat maquette on the Tangara trains, upgrading the lighting, and a lot of more slight tiny things. Another thing is that what I call the old slam doors, which are the doors that used to have those metal plates at the bottom that a lot of people would kick through, which have now since been removed, were also painted yellow. This was fairly minor, but this was during the time when it was still under City Rail. However, they were beginning to colour the trains yellow instead of the traditional black or silver. And again, as mentioned just then, the next minor upgrade was the doors on the Tangaras to be refitted with these more modern ones, as well as not having the metal plates at the bottom preventing people from kicking through them, causing a lot of the carriages to originally be locked off. Just a few months ago, on the 5th of June, Transport Minister Joe Haylen announced that the Tangara technology upgrade was being resumed, meaning that there would be upgrade to the doors of the Tangaras, although it wasn't exactly specified what that meant, whether that meant the gangway doors or the exterior doors, as the exterior doors are already majorly upgraded and don't have many problems with them. Another thing was indoor information screens, or known as PID, passenger information display screens, and also potentially upgraded announcements as well. However, there was no proper mention of whether the destination screens on the exterior of the train would be coming back, as during the temporary testing of the Tangara technology upgrade, the original phase of it, it did actually have destination screens. However, that has since been removed, and we weren't clarified if it would be coming to the new version of the Tangara technology upgrade. Do stay tuned, as I will be making a more thorough explanation of the Tangara technology upgrade and its new plans in an upcoming video in just a few weeks' time. Going back to the upgrades announced from June 5th for the Tangara trains, one thing that has already been noticed is the new noses on Tangara trains, or at least they are called anti-train surfing noses, as what they will be doing is stopping train surfers from riding on the front or back of Tangara trains. This is beginning to be implemented on Tangara trains, but is still in early stages of testing, and the design of it has been changed multiple times. I can't exactly go into much information here, however I do know a lot more about the noses on the Tangaras, as a close family member of mine is actually one of the main managers designing these new noses for the Tangaras and having them delivered to the Tangara trains. I'll be discussing more of that in the future when I'm able to disclose it. The Tangaras nowadays run on the T1, T2, and sometimes even T3, T4, T8, and T9 line train services. Many may think, why do the Tangaras run on the T2, T3, and T8 lines? There's no particular reason why. However, on weekends on mainly the T8 line, Tangaras are usually seen operating on the line, mainly Macarthur services, at least 3 a day. However, it has been said that soon, unfortunately, Tangaras will be retired from the T1 and T9 lines and will be primarily overtaken by Waratahs, meaning more Tangaras will be able to run down South Sydney, meaning more services on the T4 Eastern Suburbs and Illawarra lines. And that just about sums up an explanation of Sydney's Tangara trains, what I believe are one of Sydney's most iconic trains and will never be forgotten. In the coming years, Tangara trains will begin to age further, and unfortunately they every day are becoming closer and closer to their retirement date. They are set to be retired in the late 2020s or early 2030s. Most likely they will be retired in the early 2030s and replaced by what we believe will be a new version of the Waratah trains, or at least similar to it. The Tangara technology upgrade is also a hot topic at the moment, and I will be discussing more about it in a very soon future coming video in just a few weeks' time on an update about the Tangara technology upgrade and what's to come in the near future. I'd also like to give a massive shout out and thanks to Phil from Sydney Trains Vlogs for letting me use his footage from his YouTube videos, as majority of the videos of the Tangaras you saw here and even some photos were taken by him. So massive shout out to Phil, and thank you once again for letting me use your videos and photos. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or liking the video, as we are just nearing 7,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is a massive milestone for the channel, after only reaching 6,000 just a few months ago. I'd also like to shout out my own merch as well. For those who don't know, I recently launched merch, which is currently having some discounts at the moment on the Bankstown line shirts, which is supposed to be farewelling the Bankstown line. There are a slightly new version of these shirts, as originally they were posted with the dates on the bottom of them, farewelling them on the 21st and 29th of September. However, for those who have heard, with the recent industrial election at the time of recording this video, those dates have since been removed from the shirt and will now only show the farewell T3 Bankstown line icon. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next video very soon.